This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. Today is Wednesday, October 31st. It's Week 9 in the NFL, Week 10 in college football. This, of course, is the Pre-Snap Reads show. We do this every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Of course, we do shows on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday that specialize in college football and NFL. This show, great show. We combine it all together. CFL, if you want. If you want, you can throw in a CFL, play Ian Cameron. But we take plays from NFL and college football, combine it all into one show. Our regular guests, of course, are Ian Cameron, Joe Gavassi, and Al McMorty. Al McMorty's website is bigal.com. Joe Gavassi's website is JoeGavassiSports.com. I highly recommend you checking out both of those sites. And we've got a lot of games that we're going to try to get to today. We also have to stop about 3 or 4 minutes before the hour. So we were a little bit short on time, and we got a lot of games that Ian Cameron has requested to talk about. Hopefully we'll be able to get to everyone. So I'm going to limit what I say on any of these games, and let's get right into it. Joe Gavassi, of course, thank you very much. You are willing to go on record and publicly analyze games that we assign you. We know how hard that is, right? I just want to make this clear. It's one thing to look at a slate of games and pick out your favorite plays. Whole other deal to be assigned games and to say, fine, no problem, I'll analyze them, I'll pick them. That's what both Joe Gavassi and Al McMorty do. And two of the games that we have assigned to you this week, Joe Gavassi, are doozies. The first one, Louisville, Clemson. Yes, we assigned that game to you. I'm sorry. On behalf of SBR, I personally apologize to you, Joe Gavassi, for assigning this game to you. This is a tough one. Obviously, if Clemson wanted to win by 40, they probably could. Would they be 100% chance to win by 40 if they wanted to? No, but they'd probably more than a 50 or 55% chance to a win by 40. The question is, exactly how motivated will they be? Louisville got blasted by Wake Forest last week. We know they have a lot of issues, but they're probably going to come in here and give their absolute best punch. What do you think? The line opened at 38. It's now gotten bet up a little bit. What do you think, Joe Gavassi?
Well, what goes around comes around, and I remember a couple of years ago when quarterback Jackson was playing for Petrino at Louisville. I don't think Petrino minded rolling up some scores here. Shoes on the other foot now, as unfortunately Petrino's probably on his way out, and there are a bunch of coaches who don't mind that. One of them might be Dabo Swinney. So this again, like I said last week when I analyzed the Clemson game, purely at the whim of Dabo Swinney in this one.
And by the way,
situation that you've alluded to.
We're going to take a minute out. Great call, Joe Gavassi. Last week, Joe Gavassi analyzed the Florida State Clemson game. He gave Clemson a lot of sharps and pseudo-sharps and maybe sharps that I know were thinking Florida State might be the play, including myself. No way, Joe Gavassi liked Clemson. Great call, Joe Gavassi. Sorry, just wanted to give you a shout out for that. Okay, carry on.
Thank you. This week, I'm going to switch shoes myself a little bit. I'm going to tell you, I think that Dabo may not be as hungry for this one. Of course, he went on the air last night in the top 4 show they pick and was very humble about his performance, as he always is, and stated Alabama was miles above all the rest of the teams. Before that show came on, he was hungry to make a statement. Now that he's ensconced in that number 3 spot, I'm not quite so sure that he's going for the kill here this week, at least in the 40-point variety. I'm going to tell you my opinion is that being the Christian-like fellow he is, and with the urge to build depth in his team, he might pull back a little bit here in the second half and allow no worse than the back door to be open. I'm going to have to side with the big points in Louisville here, and what will probably be yet another contrary play after the results of last week.
Yep, Joe Gavassi, I admit that on the Loshak in the Bag show, I made this one an official pick. I did take Louisville at the line of 38 when it was available. Now it's up to 38.5 or 39, so we're going to give you Louisville plus 39 minus 110. Ian Cameron, you can pass on this one if you want, of course. You have any opinion here?
Yeah, it is actually an easy pass because I don't get involved in point spreads usually this magnitude. So it's tricky to trust the dog. It's tricky to trust the favorite to stay on the gas pedal for 60 minutes. So for me, a pass.
All right, it's going to be a pass for Ian Cameron. Joe Gavassi taking Louisville plus 39. I did give it as an official play on Monday. I had to take 38. Next one we assigned to you, Joe Gavassi, another tough one. Notre Dame at Northwestern. Notre Dame at Northwestern. Notre Dame, of course, awesome this year, right? Second off by, played Navy last week, playing well. Northwestern, unreal, right? Beating Wisconsin outright. That was one of my official plays, but on the under, I definitely feel like I don't have a good read on how well Northwestern is going to play against the spread. Obviously, they've been very impressive. They tend to be a good bet as a home underdog, and usually every year they have at least one upset outright win as a home underdog. I was on the under last week, but I don't know what to make of Northwestern here. Notre Dame is a great team. I guess I'd be leaning Notre Dame based on the numbers, but in games like these, Northwestern has a history of outperforming what the numbers say. What do you think? Northwestern, a big home underdog here. Once again, Joe Gavazzi, on behalf of SBR, I apologize for signing you this really, really tough game.
Well, I'm going to make this the feline feature of the week with
Okay.
the Northwestern Wildcats, and that's a little hint to you guys what's going to come up at the end of this game analysis. Last week there were 27 straight up underdog wins on the college football slate. In other words, almost 50% of every game had an outright underdog winner. Well, this game presents some nice line value for us because Notre Dame is a named team, and with all those victories, 8 straight, this line has been bumped up about 8 or 9 points from where it would have been opening week, providing us with, first of all, plenty of value with Northwestern in this game. Second of all, Notre Dame did beat Michigan to start the season. That gave them plenty of cred. But look who they've beaten since that time. The list includes Ball State, Vandy, Wake, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Navy, all of whom are having arguably underachieving seasons. In fact, the two major teams they have left on their slate after this one, USC and Florida State, are virtually just as underachieving as well. Let's get to Northwestern here. Not much was expected by many of my sharp sources in the Midwest. However, true to form, they have performed very, very well in the role of an underdog.
Yeah.
Northwestern has risen up to beat Purdue, covered in a 3-point loss to Michigan. I'm going to venture that was one of the rare games that Michigan played. There was a close win. They defeated Michigan State and Wisconsin. That alone's a 4-0 record as underdog. That's all part of a 19-9 ATS record by Fitzgerald as coach of Northwestern as an underdog. And as well, that record is 9-2 against the spread recently, including those 4 this year. This is a primetime game. Primetime underdogs have been phenomenal at 9-2 against the spread, and I think it's an ideal spot with value. Take the Wildcats. In my feline feature of the week, I'm going with the Northwestern Wildcats to Saturday night at Ryan Field in a potential outright upset.
Wow, there you go. Joe Gavazzi, great cat noise as always, great impression of a tiger, and also great analysis. Ian Cameron, I have to say, when the line opened to 7.5, I was like, my brain's telling me Notre Dame. Obviously, other people's brains told them the same thing. It's now up to 9.5. My gut was telling me Northwestern. My gut was also telling me under, although in those primetime games, I don't necessarily like to take unders, but I think if Northwestern does cover this one, much more likely to be a lower scoring game than a higher scoring game where Northwestern keeps up. It's now up to 9.5. Ian Cameron, what do you think?
Well, Northwestern, if you're betting the underdog in Northwestern games, you're 8-0 against the number this year. So and I've been on a bunch of Northwestern underdog spots so far this season. Took them against Michigan, took them against Michigan State, took them last week against Wisconsin. So I'm going to be on them again here. I will caution one thing, though. With being on Northwestern again here. This is a step up in class. I mean, Notre Dame's been excellent on both sides of the ball. Ian Book going to be one of the top quarterbacks that Notre Dame's faced. But there's something about this team at home, Pat Fitzgerald's preparation and his ability to adjust. This team hasn't had Jeremy Larkin. They've barely been able to run the football, yet they've still find ways to compete, get the defense to dig in, get timely stops in the red zone, force turnovers, and allow them a chance to compete in and still win football games. I'm not going to say they win this game, but you're perfect on the season, ATS, betting the underdog in Northwestern games. You keep riding it as far as I'm concerned at this point until it stops cashing. Give me Northwestern, official play.
Official play from Ian Cameron. All right, again, the line has gotten bet up. Will this one go to 10 or will it head back to the opening line of 7.5? We'll see by game day, but right now, 9.5 minus 105 at BetOnline is the best line we can give both of you. Plus 9.5 minus minus 105. And I was thinking about the under 53.5. I don't like it nearly as much as I like the under against Wisconsin because if Notre Dame starts rolling, this game could get out of hand in a hurry. Or Northwestern, again, they put up 30 points last week. You know, the game went under because they shut down Wisconsin. Northwestern put up 30 points last week. What do you think about the under, Ian Cameron?
Under makes sense. Under definitely makes some sense to me because I think Northwest, especially if you like Northwestern, I mean, they're correlated with under. They got to keep this lower scoring. They did benefit from no Hornibrook, but I like how people are saying that, they didn't face anybody for Wisconsin. It's not like Hornibrook's a great quarterback. Hornibrook's been banged up. He's thrown tons of interceptions. He's treated the football like a hand grenade, hasn't protected it well at all. I know Jack Cohen is obviously backup quarterback last week for Wisconsin, but it's not like he's a massive, incredible downgrade from Hornibrook, the way Hornibrook's played this season. So yeah, I think if you like Northwestern, you got to think that you got to hope they keep this lower scoring and then would lean under the total. I certainly lean under as well.
All right, I'm not sure because again, last week it went under, not because Northwestern couldn't move the ball or put up the points. All right, so Ian Cameron and Joe Gavassi both taking Northwestern, currently plus 9.5, minus 105 at SBR odds is the best line. Now we'll move on to two games that Joe Gavassi requested. These are also kind of tough games, but you requested these, Joe Gavassi, so no apologies at all from us for covering these games right now. West Virginia against Texas. What an interesting game this is, right? West Virginia, a juggernaut of an offense. They usually start off early. On their last game, I was all over West Virginia early, minus the points and team total over. Now they're off of two extra rest days here, but Texas, an improving team, not a program that is, usually overvalued as they have been in years past, especially at home. They're off a close loss to Oklahoma State. I'm not sure what I think about this game. It's a tough one. My first thought is maybe West Virginia early, but then again, maybe this is a spot where Texas off the close loss and a good program, a better program now does bounce back. Texas small home favorite. What do you think, Joe?
I say to you guys, WTF. That's one of my name games every week in the point spread prognosis, only $9. And what I'm saying here is the wrong team is favored. WTF. And why not? Ian points out that there are long dog streaks going in many teams and many series. How about the fact that 12 of the last 14 games for Texas has resulted in an underdog cover? That's right. The dog is now 12-2 in Texas games. Ian well knows how good the Texas coach Herman is in the underdog role. Well, but the wrong team is favored here. In that point spread prognosis, we do something called a YP play analysis. And if we catch road dogs who have the better yards per play, well, that's been about a 70% play once again this season. And West Virginia does qualify in that role again this year. This is a big game, no doubt about it. Texas, Oklahoma, West Virginia all tied 4-1 atop the conference. And of course, Texas has already beaten Oklahoma, West Virginia yet to play them. So this is going to come down to the last month here. As I said, it's a big game. Big games mean big players step up. What does it mean for quarterback Greer for West Virginia? He had a big game chance previously against Iowa State. He passed for 100 yards. He had a week to think about that and come back and torch the Baylor defense for 396 passing yards and a 58-14 West Virginia romp. I like West Virginia here based on the better yards per play, the history of the underdog, and the games for the Longhorns, and a 28-14 revenge motive from last year. Sign me up for the outright winner with West Virginia plus the 2 points in this one.
All right. Of course, West Virginia has been an awesome team this year. Can't make a strong argument against playing on them in any given week. Right now, it's a split line, 2 or 2.5. We'll be able to give you the bookmaker line, plus 2.5, minus 110. I'd be vaguely agreeing with you, but I'd be thinking maybe a little more about, just to play it a little bit safer, the West Virginia team total over, and maybe to play it even a little safer than that, the West Virginia first half team total over, something like that. I understand why you like West Virginia here. Ian Cameron, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Texas has been good to be, but mostly in the underdog role. It's been a different story with Texas when laying points, and we saw it again last week against Oklahoma State. Just didn't play 4 good quarters of football. I don't think it was Ellinger's best game. I don't think it was the defense's best game. They didn't play really good for extended stretches of that football game. It's one thing for Texas to bounce back after their first loss. It was week 1 early in the season, but now this is their second loss. Now you're in a position where you lose one more game so many of your aspirations for the season are gone. They could already be gone. I mean, you may not even be bowling New Year's Day and beyond if you lose one more game if you're Texas. So they need this one. I lean Texas because I don't trust West Virginia's defense on the road. But I'm worried about the mindset of Texas, and I don't like seeing the coach lose it on the sideline, Tom Herman, like he did at the end of that game. Maybe something that festers around this locker room and basically shows up on the field and influences the way they play in this game here. So I lean Texas, but it will not be an official bet of mine this week.
All right, yeah, and so if you don't trust the defense of West Virginia, you might be leaning over as well, maybe, Ian Cameron.
Yeah, totals wise, I think Texas is going to move the ball against West Virginia. I don't think that Texas defense or that West Virginia defense is going to shut them down. They're very soft up front. I think they can run the ball against them. West Virginia, though, Will Grier, let's give him credit. He's had a good season. Off the bye, that offense looked really in sync against Baylor. Now, it was a bad opponent at home. It's going to be a better opponent on the road. But I think West Virginia is going to move the ball. Certainly totals wise, if I'm playing this one, I'd look over the total.
Yeah, I would think that way as well. And I think that if you're liking West Virginia, you're probably liking the over. And if you're liking the under, you're probably liking Texas. Would you agree with that, Joe Gavassi? I know we weren't planning for that question, but would you agree with that? If you're liking West Virginia, you're probably liking the over. And if you're liking Texas, you're probably liking the under.
Well, that certainly makes sense because the West Virginia Mountaineers love to make it a high-scoring game, and Texas realizes that in a high-scoring game, they probably will not have a good chance here.
Right.
So that line of thinking would follow for me.
All right, so Joe Gavassi taking West Virginia plus 2.5, Northwestern plus 9.5 minus 105, and Louisville plus 39 minus 110. The last game we're going to talk about with you, Joe Gavassi, is Air Force Army. We're going to talk about that one right now. The line is Army minus 7, except Heritage is hanging 6.5. So if you want Army, we will give you that line at 6.5. The total is pretty low, around 44. I was talking about this game on Monday on the Low Shack and the Bag Show. I was hoping to see an opening line of like 51, maybe 48, and if so, I was going to pound it. Didn't really happen. The opening line was right around where it is right now, 44 or 44.5. Still have a vague lean to the under, though, and of course, last year, Army won 21 zip. Army's been great against the spread this year. Little different situation when they go up against another Service Academy team, though. What's your take on this one, Joe?
Faux or faux real? That's the question that I ask every week in the point spread prognosis.
Yes, you do.
And I always pick out one team. This week, however, in the faux or faux real column, I choose a betting line. And this betting line is faux. It's simply not for real. As a result, I have a definitive side in this game.
Okay.
You know, this game's going to start at 10 a.m. body time for Air Force. And normally I'd be concerned about that. These guys get up at 5 a.m. every morning and do wind sprints in the hallways of the dorms. So I really don't think that's an issue. On this very program last week, we had Army as a double rusher over Eastern Michigan. I grinned from ear to ear as they came trotting in with a 289-34 overland edge on Eastern Michigan in their wire-to-wire win. Army's already got their 6 wins for the year. No such pressure like that on them. With teams like Colgate and Lafayette on their schedule the rest of the year, they should be pretty geared up to play both Air Force and Navy for that CIC trophy, which is what they're all about in football. Yeah, Army's playing very well, no doubt about it. But Army does one thing. They run the football, and Air Force sees it every day in practice. Air Force, a bit different this year, and pretty much the way they have been in the last 2 or 3 years. They're beginning to throw the football. In fact, did you know they both ran and passed for 200 yards last week versus Boise State, where they narrowly failed to get the cover or did get the push if you shop diligently. 21-0 loss from last year surely will motivate Air Force, a team who only has 3 victories so far in the year and needs at least 3 more, not easy to come by in the staunch Mountain West Conference. So Air Force will indeed be fired up for this one. They also qualify as one of my running dogs in near 70% statistical situation. And with Army 1-6 against the spread as home chalk, and the underdog now standing, are you ready for this, guys? 23-4 against the spread in Air Force games for the underdog. It is the betting line that is faux in this one. We grab the 7 points with Air Force as they take this one right to the wire.
Wow. All right. Air Force lost 21-0 last year. Army 5-2-1 against the spread so far this year. But Joe Gavassi, what a great stat that is. 23-4. I was not ready for that. I thought I was ready for it. I was not ready for it. That one caught me by surprise. Ian Cameron, Joe Gavassi's taking Air Force. Right now we can give you +7, -106. Great analysis and breakdown from Joe Gavassi. That's what he does. That's what he's been doing his whole career. What's your take on this one, Ian?
Yeah, I was on Air Force last week against Boise State, getting +10 against the Broncos. Got a push out of that. No harm, no foul. And it's funny you mentioned last year's meeting, 21-0, Pete. I was on Army in that game. Our Air Force was a much different team then than they are now. They were banged up. They were injury riddled. They were struggling. It was a mess of an Air Force team when Army laid it on them last year, 21-0. That's not quite the same. And Joe brought up a really excellent point about Air Force throwing the football more than they have in the past. They're definitely doing that. You look at it, 14.4 pass attempts per game for Air Force this season, just 8.5 pass attempts per game for Army. So there's no doubt Air Force has made a point of it to try to throw the ball more. They think Sanders, their current quarterback, is a little bit more adept to throw the football than some of the other quarterbacks Air Force has had in the past. And he was pretty good throwing it last week against Boise in that game. You know, on the flip side, Hopkins returned at quarterback for Army. Throwing the ball is not his specialty. Air Force's run defense concerns me here for Army. Air Force's run defense has been better than Army. It's been absolutely fantastic. And if they can't run the ball, this Army team, 91 passing yards per game, that's not going to cut it. I'm with Joe completely.
Wow.
I think Air Force as an underdog is something I'm interested in. Every time they're catching points, they haven't lost a game by more than 10 points this entire season. And I think they hang right well in this game throughout. So at +7 or better, yeah, count me in. I'll make that official. Air Force as well for me.
Okay, +7, -106 is the current line at Pinnacle. Joe Gavassi and Ian Cameron both going on Air Force. We do want to keep a brisk pace here. Joe Gavassi, thanks so much. Once again, he has given us Air Force +7, West Virginia +2.5, Northwestern +9.5, and Louisville +39. Joe Gavassi's website is joegavassisports.com. Definitely check it out. Thanks so much, Joe. We'll talk to you again next week.
My pleasure as always, guys. Good luck out there to you this week.
All right,
Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. We are going to wait for Al.
Take care, Joe. See ya.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ian.
Okay, we're going to wait for Al McMorty to join us. While we do, though, we're going to talk about some of these games that Ian Cameron, you suggested that you wanted to talk about. First one, Duke against Miami, Florida. Duke lost at Pitt. I know some sharp guys were on Duke last week. I stayed off that one, and I did not take a loss on that one. Miami, one extra rest day. Both have been bad against the spread recently. What do you like here, Ian?
Yeah, I'm going to take one last chance here with Duke getting points against this Miami team. I know Duke's had some bumps in the road. They came out of a bye week and totally dominated, shut down Georgia Tech, and it's been a struggle for Duke since then. They lose to Pitt, they lose to Virginia in back-to-back weeks. You start to wonder what's wrong with this team offensively. And I know there's question marks about Duke, and their ability to move the ball against Miami's defense is a concern, but I think there's even more concerns laying 9.5 with the state of this Miami program right now. Yeah. It's been a disappointing season for Mark Richt's team. He doesn't know who his quarterback is going to be because he has no confidence in either one. Malik Rozier or N'Kosi Perry's going back and forth playing musical chairs there. This defense is regressing. They're giving up big plays. They're giving up big yards. If they're not forcing turnovers and they're not breaking out the turnover chain, they're not getting stops. It's not been that same Miami elite level defense this season. And you look at it, I think Duke's going to be able to hone in on the run game for Miami, force Miami into being one-dimensional through the air, and Miami's not good throwing the football. And I think Duke's defense is taking some licks. I think they're going to be up for this game playing a team like Miami. They still have a pretty solid run defense to really get after Miami here. And we know Cutcliffe as an underdog has been very, very good this season. 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread in 3 previous tries as a road underdog. And he won all 3 of those games outright at Northwestern, at Baylor, and at Georgia Tech. I think they're in this game start to finish against Miami. Give me Duke. +9.5.
All right, this line has gotten bet up, but of course the week is far, far, far from over. Far from eons to go in this week, and we can give you 9.5. This line easily might close back down at 8 where it opens, 7.5, maybe even 7. Who knows? We'll give you +9.5, -109. That's the best line right now at Pinnacle. And now I'm very happy to welcome from BigAl.com, Big Al McMorty. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Hey guys, how are you doing today?
Good. All right, so Al, we have a lot of games that we're going to try to cover, and we do have to wrap up about 3 minutes before the hour. So I'm not going to engage in the usual niceties that I usually do when you first join us, although I just kind of did. So whatever. Anyway, Al McMorty, also, as I said with the Joe Gavassi segment, we start out our segment with Al McMorty taking games that he agrees to cover, that we ask him to cover, that we assign to him. Obviously, those are much different from games that he sees an edge on, that he feels confident going on publicly. But Al takes these games anyway. Thank you so much, Al. And the first one we're going to talk about with you is the biggest doozy of the week, Alabama, LSU. LSU about a 14-point home dog. Both teams off buys. Everyone's been wondering and scratching their heads and giving opinions on this point spread. I've seen strong opinions on both sides. What's your opinion, Al McMorty?
Well, I'm not scratching my head. I do have a strong opinion as well. The Crimson Tide, they're looking to repeat as national champions this season. Obviously, this game at LSU is going to go a long way toward determining whether they can accomplish that feat. I love the Tigers here, Peter. Double-digit home underdogs. It's hard for me to pass up these type of teams that have great defenses. LSU is giving up just 15.1 points per game this season. It comes into this contest off a 19-3 blowout win. And in conference matchups between two teams off straight up and against the spread wins, as both Alabama and LSU are, home underdogs that give up 17 or less points have gone 59 and 27 ATS. So that's one reason I really favor taking the home underdog here. Another is that defending national champions are now 1 and 20 ATS, their last 21, playing away from home off back-to-back wins if they cover this point spread by more than 7 points in their previous game, and they're not favored by 17 points in the current game. So I just think it's a great spot to go against the defending champs, and I think it's a great spot to take the defensive home underdog.
Okay, sounds good. I apologize for whatever audio quirk that was. For a second, I thought it was Joe Gavassi.
That was my phone that is now shut off.
Okay, so I was just worried it was Joe Gavassi still on the line making sound effects, as he is so good at. Would have been funny, but a little bit distracting. All right, so as you know, Al McMorty, this line opened at 14, went down a little bit at some place at 13.5, now crossed over 14, crossed back over 14. Unreal, 14.5. Some early money coming in on Alabama, or midweek money coming in on Alabama. Again, eons to go before this week is over. We might see this one back down at 14, maybe even 13.5 by kickoff. Right now, plus 14.5, minus 106. Ian Cameron, what do you think?
If I'm playing, I'm taking LSU here in this game because I look at Alabama's schedule. Not a lot on the bone there. Arkansas State, Tennessee, Missouri, Lafayette. I mean, there's been some very weak slate of opponents. Louisville's proven to be no good. Mississippi State's proven to be a disappointment. Those are Alabama's opponents so far. This is going to be by far their toughest challenge. But my concern with LSU is if by chance this Alabama offense is truly this good and it becomes two a time again and Tagovailoa goes off in this game against LSU, LSU's offense is incapable, in my opinion, of coming through the back door and coming from behind if they fall behind big. Nevertheless, I think the numbers have caught up to Alabama. Odds makers have caught up to Alabama. They're 2-3 against the number their last 5 games. We're very fortunate to cover by a whisker in the 2 games they did cover. I lean LSU, but I'm going to have to actually see with my own 2 eyes Alabama struggle before I do take it. But at this number, if I have to give out a lean, LSU, but it won't be an official play.
All right, so Ian Cameron passing, Al McMorty taking LSU plus 14.5, minus 106. I'd be leaning LSU as well, although the way I approach Alabama for many years and the way I've approached successfully, whenever they're like a 40-point favorite over a horrible team, I'm looking to fade them. But whenever they're like a 24.5-point favorite over another SEC team and the line just seems too big, you're like, is Alabama really that much better than this SEC opponent that they're playing? More often than not, the answer is yes. Is this year that the case? I'm not sure. But Al McMorty liking LSU plus 14.5. A few other sharp guys that I know also liking LSU at plus 14. They liked it at 14. They thought the line was going to get bet down. It's up to 14.5 now. I'm sure they're salivating at the EV there. And Al McMorty giving LSU at plus 14.5 as an official pick here on the Pre-Snap Read Show. Thanks so much, Al McMorty. Great breakdown. Now let's talk about BC against Virginia Tech. Of course, BC rolling all year. There were some people who were onto that in the beginning of the season, and those people have cashed very, very nicely, both with their team total overs and their spreads. Virginia Tech pounded by Georgia Tech last game. Tough one. Is VC going to roll again here? What do you think, Al?
Well, the Eagles are having a very good year. 5-2 this season. They're now ranked 22 in the country following that 13-point victory against Miami last week. They've also covered their last 3 games as well. Meanwhile, Virginia Tech having a down season for that program, just 3-3 straight up, 2-4 ATS, and they have failed to cover their last 3 games. And one of the things I like to do, Peter, when you get competitively priced games with point spreads less than 11 points, if one team's coming off 3 straight ATS wins, another team coming off 3 straight ATS losses, believe it or not, the team coming off those 3 straight ATS losses, they do very well. The teams coming off the wins, they've covered just 41 of 113 games going back to 1980. So that's a contrarian play. I do like Virginia Tech. That's one of the reasons I like them. Another, Virginia Tech just got blown out last week by Georgia Tech at home by 21 points. But 500 or better teams that were blown out by more than 20 points in their last game at home, if they also were favored in that defeat, those teams have covered 62% since 1980, provided they're playing a conference opponent and not favored by 3 or more points. So I'm going to take the points as Virginia Tech's installed as a home underdog here. I'm going to take the points with the Hokies.
All right, it's a split line, 2 or 2.5, and I should have mentioned this before we did the segment, but I would have bet everything that's the way you were leaning. I know this is how you think, Al McMorty. It's a little bit contrarian. That's why there's a value that tends to endure when you have two teams. One team has been playing great recently against the spread. Another team that has been not doing well against the spread. And you have the great team as a suspiciously low road favorite to some people's eyes. A lot of time there's a reason for it. And Al McMorty not afraid to pull the trigger on the somewhat ugly home dog to some people's eyes. Virginia Tech plus 2.5. Ian Cameron, do you agree?
No, not on this one. I like Boston College here. Look, it's simple for me with Boston College. They're a team that they can run the football. They're going to win and cover. And Virginia Tech's not stopped the run. That's the game that they're supposed to show up for, Virginia Tech. Last Thursday night against Georgia Tech. Off a bye, needing to get on a run, not playing great. They lost to Notre Dame. They barely beat North Carolina. You're off a bye. You got extra time to prepare for the Georgia Tech triple option, which is usually a benefit to teams in that situation. And they came out and just stunk. I mean, they got outgained by 343 yards on the ground, 49 points allowed. There's something not right here with Virginia Tech. Of course, they had the inexplicable loss to Old Dominion earlier this season. There's something not right with this football team right now. Defensively, Bud Foster's got no answers. The secondary's been gutted with injuries as of late. Boston College can't necessarily take advantage of that, but Tech's not stopping the run, and that's going to allow A.J. Dillon to get going here. Now, is the spot dubious for BC? Sure it is. I mean, you're coming off a huge home win last Friday night against Miami that got you to 6 wins and bowl eligibility. My eyes are telling me something's not right with Virginia Tech. As long as this number doesn't go beyond 3, I'll lay less than that here with Boston College as an official pick.
Wow, there you go. I love it when this happens, an official pick. And, of course, all the reasons that Ian Cameron stated for liking Boston College, Al McMorty is aware of, which is why there might be some enduring value with the kind of contrarian plays that Al McMorty looks for, but they're not right all the time. We'll see who is proven to be accurate in their analysis of this game. BC -2, -107 is the current line at Pinnacle. And once again, it is a split line. So if it does land on exactly 2, Ian Cameron will get a push and Al McMorty will get a win. That's why line chopping is so important no matter where you are in your handicapping career, just starting out or been doing it for 40 years. Ian Cameron's going to take Boston College -2, -107. All right, we're going to cover 2 NFL games with Al McMorty in a second, but right now we're going to talk about one more college football game. And Ian Cameron talking about a team, something's not right. Something's not right with this team. Ohio State, are they in that category as well? They got blasted outright by Purdue. There were a lot of people in the Low Shack in the Bag show were saying that they liked Purdue plus the points last week. One guy, Kobe Valentine, regular commenter, went out on a limb and said that he liked Ohio State to lose outright. Of course, they got blasted. Is this a big bounce back spot for Ohio State? Do they have it in them, or is there just something fundamentally wrong with this team and they should not be laying 20 points even at home to Nebraska? What do you think, Al?
Well, I think the key factor here is that Ohio State had last week off to lick its wounds. If you take a look at Urban Meyer's career going all the way back to his days at Bowling Green, so you've got Bowling Green, you've got the Utah Utes, you've got the Florida Gators, you've got Ohio State. The one consistent thing about Urban Meyer is if you give him more than a week to prepare, he's going to win. His team's going all the way back to those days at Bowling Green, 33-4 straight up. 28-9 ATS when he's playing with rest. I will never go against Urban Meyer when you give him extra time to prepare. So I'm going to take a look at Ohio State here. And of course, yes, it's true. They had that embarrassing loss against Purdue. I thought it was predictable. We had Purdue in that game. In this situation here, because it was such a bad loss, they covered the spread by 4, or they failed to cover the spread by 41 points. One of the things I like to do, take a look at how teams do of upset conference losses in which they failed to cover the point spread by 32 or more points. Those teams have gone 71-43 ATS going back to 1980 if they're now playing another conference foe that won its previous game. I think the situation is perfect here for Ohio State to, just band together, play a great game, and just blow out Nebraska.
All right, and interestingly, of course, there has been a huge market line move against Ohio State, even off a bad loss. That is surprising to see. It opened at 21. It's now down to 17.5 or 17, so we can give you Ohio State minus 17, minus 110. I predict that this line will creep back up towards the opening line by kickoff. Might be 18.5, might get all the way back up to 20.5. We'll see, but right now it's a split line 17 or 17.5. Ian Cameron, what do you think? I mean, I would normally be you'd be leaning towards Ohio State here. I guess just like everyone else, I'm a little bit concerned by how underwhelming they've been ATS in recent weeks.
Yeah, it's a fascinating game because early in the week I had a mild lean on the Nebraska side here, but I started doing the handicapping process, and you look into things more and more, and you start to look at Nebraska's defensive numbers, and then you start to look at what they've done on the road. You got bashed by 17 at Wisconsin, bashed by 46 at Michigan as your two step-up-in-class games on the road, and then you start to see, Ohio State off a bye, and a great point by Al. Urban Meyer with extra time to prepare. He's not just been good. He's been phenomenal in that kind of spot over his career, going back to Florida, even Utah. Remember when he was the Utah coach way back in the day? I mean, that's how good Urban Meyer's all the way back to then. He has been phenomenal with the bye week, with extra time to get ready for a game. And to be honest with you, I know Ohio State, they didn't look prepared. They didn't look mentally geared in that loss to Purdue. I don't know what it was. They just didn't look well prepared for what Purdue was going to throw at them in that game. I think they'll be better prepared. They should be. They're off a stinging loss here in this game. So I was looking at Nebraska early in the week. I talked myself basically right off it after looking at all these different factors. So for me, this is now a pass.
A pass. Okay. 4 straight ATS losses for Ohio State. And this is definitely an interesting situation here. And Al McMorty is taking Ohio State minus 17. Again, I predict that this line will creep back up to closer to the opening line by kickoff, and I might wind up tailing you on this one, Al, as well. You made a great argument, great breakdown. All right, now let's move on to the 2 NFL games that we're going to cover. First one, Al McMorty, KC and Cleveland. Again, this was a game that was assigned to Al McMorty. Thank you very much for taking it. Not necessarily one that he would have chosen himself as a game with a clear betting value. Cleveland pounded by Pitt last week. Hugh Jackson fired. A lot of times teams bounce back in NBA and NFL when right after a coach is fired. What's your take on this one? Cleveland, a big home underdog here, Al.
Well, I had a huge play last week on the Denver Broncos plus the 8.5, against Kansas City, and they came through and covered the point spread there. And that was the first time all season that Kansas City failed to cover the closing line. And a lot of times people will look for those teams that are these great point spread teams to then bounce back off that initial ATS defeat. But in actuality, they actually follow up that first ATS defeat with the second ATS defeat. If you look at what teams do when they start the season with 5 or more ATS wins and then they finally lose that first game, those teams are 2-10 ATS in that next game after that first ATS loss, including 0-6 ATS in that situation going back to 2009. The other factor here for me is it's tough, and we've talked about it here on the show before. It's tough for me to lay a lot of points with a team that has a very poor defense. Kansas City giving up, 25, 26 points a game, and they're laying over a touchdown. When you get teams that give up 23.67 points or more a game and are favored by 8 or more points in that game, those teams are 37 and 78 ATS. That's not a recipe for success. So I think the back door is always going to be open here, even with a Cleveland offense that's, awful. And I'm going to take the points with Cleveland.
Okay, well, the market is definitely uncertain about this game, as lots of people watching this video might be. 8, 8.5, and 9 are all widely available. So we'll give you the current line at UWager. Bet Phoenix 9 plus 9 minus 110. Pinnacle is right in the middle at 8.5. Other places, Heritage, Intertops, the Greek are all at 8. Ian Cameron, what do you think here? Take Cleveland as a big, ugly home dog?
Well, handicapping 101, and a lot of people are going to think this is definitely, you got a team that just fired their coach, fired their OC, Todd Haley. Let's bet on them the next week. step-up effort from the whole group. And certainly it's a Cleveland spot. And if anyone's looking at Cleveland, I certainly wouldn't talk them out of it. My concern is going to be their offense. I didn't like maybe that's part of the reason why Haley's gone. Maybe we're going to see a breath of fresh air now offensively for this team. But problem is, it may not just be scheming and play calling. There's just not a lot of weapons for Baker Mayfield. You look at it, once you get past the first two receivers, Jarvis Landry and Antonio Callaway, there's not a lot of meat on that bone at wide receiver. David Njoku, the tight end's been banged up the last couple weeks. Really didn't look 100%, didn't look right at all last week. So my concern here for Cleveland is I like the spot for them. I really do. And Kansas City, looks like numbers have finally caught up to them. My concern is if Cleveland falls behind, is there that offense to keep up with Mahomes and company on the Kansas City side? I'm not sure there is. Yeah, I was leaning Cleveland this week too. I'm going to probably stay out of it and pass, though.
Okay, it's a pass from Ian Cameron and Al McMorty taking Cleveland +9 as an official pick. Again, that was a game that we assigned him. We asked him to take. And, of course, Al McMorty will cover any game that we ask him to take. Al McMorty's website is bigal.com. All right, the next NFL game we're going to talk about with you, Al, is Detroit against Minnesota. This is an interesting one, right? Detroit, of course, 2 games ago at at Miami was a play that a lot of people were on. We were all over that one in the Low Shack in the Bag show. Team total over and Detroit to cover. And of course, they do have an impressive offense. Then last week, we saw the other side of Detroit, right? An anemic defense couldn't stop the Seahawks at all. Minnesota has, two elite receivers. Cousins put up terrific numbers last week. So maybe vulnerable. Detroit will be vulnerable again defensively this week. What do you think, Al? What's your take on this one?
Well, last week Minnesota had that huge playoff rematch game versus the New Orleans Saints. Of course, the Saints are playing with revenge. And if Minnesota was now on the road, I might look for a letdown because teams that have these playoff rematches and then go on the road the next week, they don't do so well. But Minnesota's at home, so that's not really a factor here. Minnesota also is coming into this ball game off that double-digit home loss. And going back to 1980, if you have a 500 or better record, and if you're at home, you've cashed 59% ATS off a double-digit home loss the previous week. So I'm going to take Minnesota here. I'm going to lay the points against Detroit.
Okay, the market so far has been favoring Detroit just a bit, opened around 5.5. It's now dropping down to 4.5. And Bookmaker just recently dropped down to 4, so we can give you that one. Minnesota -4, -113. That's the current line at Bookmaker. What do you think, Ian Cameron? Detroit definitely looked ominously vulnerable on defense last week.
They didn't look good at all on defense. And in fact, we got the Detroit Lions are developing a nice little NFL version of Northwestern this season. The underdog is covered in all but one Detroit Lions football game this season. That's the only thing that would make me consider Detroit, though. I mean, I know them catching points, and Matt Stafford, he has that habit of getting a backdoor garbage touchdown when they're already losing to cover a number. That's certainly on the table here. And Minnesota's defense is banged up. They got a lot of key players out, but you have to keep in mind last week's loss. They're going in for a touchdown right before halftime last week against New Orleans. Adam Thielen fumbles. It's returned the other way, and what a change in momentum that was. The pick six that Cousins threw and Stephon Diggs broke off a route. Could have been a different game, believe it or not, against the Saints last week. Different result. Wasn't meant to be. This is a big-time game for Minnesota. They can't lose 2 in a row at home. There's too much to lay to chance, and I don't trust the Lions' defense to travel on the road here. I lean Minnesota. Not going to get involved, but I think Al might be onto something here.
Okay, so not an official pick. Al McMorty will take Minnesota, and we'll give him the up to the second line at Bookmaker, -4, -113. So Al McMorty's official pick so far in this show, LSU, +14.5, Virginia Tech, +2.5, Ohio State, -17, Cleveland Browns +9, and Minnesota -4, -113. Ian Cameron so far has given us Northwestern +9.5, Air Force +7, Duke +9.5, and Boston College -2, going directly head-to-head with Al McMorty in that one. So we got about 10 or 12 minutes left in this show. Ian Cameron sent me a whole bunch of games that he wants to get to. Al McMorty, if you have anything to say about the games we talk about with Ian Cameron right now, that'd be great. If not, that's fine. Next game, let's go to college. Ian Cameron, Florida State, NC State. Florida State, of course, got blasted by Clemson. NC State beat down by Syracuse. Big passing game for NC State. I was thinking maybe over. What do you like here, Ian?
Over. I'm right with you here, Pete, on this game. Looking at the total, not the side. NC State's defense on the field a ton against Clemson 2 weeks ago. On the field a ton last week against that Syracuse up-tempo Dino Babers offense. That's been a lot of snaps and a lot of time on the football field late. The last 2 games for this NC State defense. Believe me, this Florida State offense has been a nightmare. It's been a train wreck this season. Is this an opportunity maybe for me to think proactively and that maybe FSU and that offense can get something rolling here in this game against a tired, depleted, somewhat now declining NC State defense? I think so. And on the flip side, I like the NC State offense still. I like Ryan Finley, senior quarterback. He knows this OC of his, Eli Drinkwitz, going back to the Boise State days when they were both there. I like this offense to do some damage here. You got Florida State's going to play quick. NC State's very efficient when they get in the red zone. Total's only 53.5, 54. Yeah, we'll go over the total in this game.
Well, the total's actually 53.5, or 54. So we're going to give you over 53 minus 108. I agree with you, Ian Cameron. I'd love to talk about why this total has dropped down. It opened very modestly at 54.5, and now has gotten bet down. I was leaning over as well. Al McMorty, anything on this game?
Well, I haven't looked today, but I know yesterday I saw the Florida State quarterback was questionable, so that could be an issue. Are any of you guys following the injury reports to see what the current status is now?
No, I have not checked any update on that.
Let me just check.
Yeah.
I don't mind the backup getting in there, to be honest with you, Al, because he's played before. Blackman. We'll see if he ends up suiting up in this game for Francois is questionable, but the quarterback behind him has played before. Wouldn't totally mind that if maybe FSU needs that at this point, something to jolt this offense, something to spark it. Quarterback change could do that as well. So I like this play, just to put it out there. I like this play regardless of who suits up for FSU at the QB spot.
All right, so let's move on. 53 minus 108 is the line he's going to take. This is a game that you sent me, Ian Cameron, and I'm going to choose this one a little out of order just because I think it's very interesting. I want to hear what you have to say. Cal against Washington State. You chose this one, Ian Cameron, right? Cal, of course, beat Washington State outright last week. Washington State, after their win against Stanford last week, now 8-0 against the spread on the year. Cal clearly improving, though. What do you like here, Ian Cameron?
I shouldn't say begrudgingly, because every pick I like, I should be convicted by it, or have conviction with it. But begrudgingly, I'm going to step in front of Washington State here in this game, and I'm going to take Cal. Cal's just been too good of a double-digit underdog. They've been phenomenal as a dog under Wilcox. This team's they had a little hiccup, starting to find it again. Crushed Oregon State, which just beat Colorado, by the way, this Oregon State team. Last week against Washington, you end up with a very, very impressive win against the Huskies in that game. So Cal starting to get it going a bit. Washington State now, they didn't have a letdown last week, but they played well against Stanford. This is where it could happen. Big win against Oregon. Big win against Stanford. It's not easy to go against them. Minshew's been phenomenal at quarterback. But Cal has given Mike Leach's team fits the last couple seasons, including last year. I think they could give him some more fits here. I'll take Cal plus 10.5. This will be my one time betting against Washington State, but I like Cal. It sets up well for them.
Plus 10.5, minus 110 at the Greek. Al McGordy, anything on this game?
I'm just laughing because it's Ian's one time to do that. This might be my only time in history I'm taking a team that's 7-0 ATS.
Wow.
I'm the contrarian. I like Washington State here, which is kind of ironic. They're playing with revenge from that blowout loss last year. I have one system that's 101 and 68 ATS, which plays on certain teams with revenge from blowout losses of previous year. I also want to go against California off its upset win. I like Washington State here, laying the points.
You make that official, Al?
Yes.
Okay, minus 10, minus 106 at Pinnacle. Again, that is a split line. And once again, Ian Cameron and Al McMorty going head to head. All right, let's keep a brisk pace. I'd love to get to all these games. Ian Cameron, interestingly, you chose Louisiana Tech and Mississippi State. Let's talk about that one. Looks like another tough one. Mississippi State, of course, topped Texas A&M. That was an interesting result. Texas A&M was off the bye, but they got beat. I don't know. I was thinking maybe a shot with the under here. Does Mississippi State care about this one? Maybe Louisiana Tech doesn't either because they already played at LSU. Why'd you pick this game, Ian Cameron?
Yeah, it's Mississippi. It's a weird scheduling thing for both teams, but especially for Mississippi State. You're right in the heart of a grueling SEC schedule, and now you got to play Louisiana Tech out of conference at home. I think it's questionable to see them have 100% focus and intensity on this game. And all Louisiana Tech's done in the road dog role under Skip Holtz is 13-3 against the spread. Last 16 tries as a road dog. They covered at LSU wire to wire this season, won outright as a road dog at North Texas, won outright as a road dog last week against Florida Atlantic. Jamar Smith's a solid quarterback. They've got an offense that can come through the back door if need be. And Mississippi State's offense, give them credit, finally righted the ship. Good win against A&M last week. But I still don't know if this offense is clicking on all cylinders to cover these kind of numbers. And I think La Tech does have a little more motivation in this game than Miss State. I'll take La Tech. They've been great in the road dog roll at plus 23.5.
All right, well, the line is climbing up, and we're going to give you 24, Ian Cameron. It opened at 21. Now it's up to 23.5 or 24. A bunch of places have 24. You wager 24 minus 110. Al McMorty, anything on this one?
Yeah, for me, this is a play against Louisiana Tech. They're playing back-to-back road games, coming off an upset game. I understand Ian's point about, it's a non-conference game for Mississippi State. I don't think that's really a factor here. I'm going to just lay the points with Mississippi State and look for Louisiana Tech not to play good games back-to-back on the road.
Wow, you want to make that one an official pick as well?
Definitely, yes.
Okay, minus 23.5, minus 106. Again, it opened to 21. Now it's up to 23.5. Ian Cameron, are there any of the college games that you sent me that I didn't that has your favorite play out of the college games that you sent me that I didn't mention yet that you want to make sure we get to?
No, we can move on to the NFL dive, Sam.
All right.
That's good.
Let's move on to the NFL. One of the NFL games that you asked to cover, Ian Cameron, Atlanta, Washington. Of course, the Falcons are off a bye, haven't been good ATS this year, and the Skins are in a really interesting ATS situation. 3 straight low-scoring wins and covers. Now they're at home against Atlanta. What do you like here, Ian Cameron?
Yeah, you know what? Atlanta's not done a whole lot on the road to impress you, but I'm going to take my chance with them here in this spot. Atlanta off the bye on the road. Let's be honest, Washington Redskins, if that was any other team that they played other than the New York Giants last week, I'm not sure they win that game. That was not a crisp, that was not a fluid performance by the Redskins. That was the Giants screwing up more than Washington doing things good last week in that football game. An inept, pathetic group this year, the Giants are, and Washington took advantage of that. I like the spot here for Atlanta. I like the fact they went one going into the bye. I think they've still realized we got something we can shoot for. If we get on a roll, we know we have the offense that can put up points. And Alex Smith and the Redskins offense still looks too pedestrian far too often for my liking. I know Atlanta's defense has been carved up. They've been riddled with injuries. I think they can go on the road, hold down this pedestrian Washington offense, let Matt Ryan and company take care of the rest. Give me Atlanta as a slight road dog off a bye. Great spot, in my opinion, for the Falcons.
It is getting bet down. 2.5 now down to 1.5 or 2. We can give you +2 minus 115. I was thinking maybe the Atlanta team total over here. Al McMorty, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ian here. I'm gonna take the Washington or the Atlanta Falcons plus the points against Washington. Washington, I think, is a poor 31-71 ATS when they're not getting 2 or more points and they're playing a 500 or worse team at home. So, and I've got other angles also on the Atlanta Falcons. I like Atlanta a good bit here. I would take the points.
Okay.
I also want to make a quick point. I had a rant last week about there's no such thing as teams looking ahead, but one asterisk to that: when you're playing a great team the next week, Mississippi State has Alabama on deck, and there is some evidence that when teams are playing a great team the next week, they actually tend to do well before that game. I think they kind of know that they have to get that win because they're not going to get it the following week. So that might be a factor in that game against Louisiana Tech. And you might see Mississippi State, blow them out because they need to win. They're not going to win against Bama.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much, Al McMorty. All right, +2 minus 115. Ian Cameron and Al McMorty finally in agreement. And I think we have time for one more game. Which would you rather talk about, Ian Cameron, Jets Miami or Houston Denver?
Let's do Houston Denver. I talked Jets on the round table, so okay. Houston Denver.
Houston Denver. What do you like here? Ian Cameron.
Houston. I know Houston. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Houston Texans here. Look, this team's maddening. This team is absolutely will drive you bonkers trying to back them sometimes. But you got to think the writing's on the wall for the Denver Broncos at this point in time. I mean, you trade away Demaryius Thomas. You got a bad offensive line. You've got a defense that can't stop the run. You've got issues all around. Vance Joseph's getting questioned. It's sure signs that the for sale signs up. They're looking at the future and rebuilding. They're 1-5 in their last 6 games straight up. Denver. The only win was against a lowly Arizona Cardinals team. Houston, to me, can go on the road, get this job done. You look at it, they can stop Phillip Lindsay because their run defense, the Texans has been phenomenal. Force Case Keenum to be one-dimensional when he can't make plays consistently in the passing game. He's been on his back too often. Can't escape the pocket when it collapses because he's got very limited mobility. Yeah, at a near pick'em price range, I'm just going to look for the better team and better form, better defense, and I think better quarterback as well. Watson playing better each week. I'll take Houston here near pick'em +1.
All right, +1 -105. Al McMorty, any thoughts?
Yeah, I like Denver in this ball game.
Go ahead.
Denver. It's mainly a play against Houston off their 3 wins and scoring a lot of points in their previous game. So it's technical, but I'll take Houston. I'll take Denver minus the 1 point.
And you want to make that official?
I do, yeah.
Okay, -1 -104. Let's quickly review. Ian Cameron is on. Northwestern +9.5. Air Force +7. Duke +9.5. BC -2. NC State game over 53. Cal +10.5. Louisiana Tech +24. Atlanta Falcons +2. Houston +1. Al McMorty has given us LSU +14.5. Virginia Tech +2.5. Ohio State -17. Cleveland Browns +9. Minnesota Vikings -4. Washington State -10. Mississippi State -23. -110. I actually saw that later, so I'm going to give him 23 -110. Atlanta Falcons +2 -115. That's the only play Al and Ian are agreeing on. And Denver Broncos -1 -104. That's the pre-snap reads show for October 31st. Al McMorty's website is bigal.com. Thanks so much, Ian and Al. Talk to you guys again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck, everybody. See ya.
Thanks, Ian.